Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Superman and Lois Season 2, and this is going to be my review for Episode 8 for this season, the exact halfway point for this season. Feels crazy that we're only halfway through because of so much has happened this season, and then you got to think we have another entire half to go. Like, what else is going to happen? But anyway, spoiler alert for everything, everything we're going to talk about in this video because there's stuff to talk about in the episode that reveals a few things, so go away if you've not watched the episode. But of course, if you have watched the episode, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about everything, what you love, what you hate, just general theories, predictions, thoughts, all that. Let me know down there in the comments. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, just want to show your support and you enjoyed the episode, want to drop a like on the video to do all that. So last episode was a while ago, well, not a while ago, but we went on like a 1 week break from Superman and Lois, even though it felt like it was a while ago. But the main thing really to go on from last episode into this one, actually there's two things. The first is that Jonathan was busted by Lois around the whole ex-Kryptonite situation. So that carries on this episode and even more fallout from it. And of course we had, Anderson, Lieutenant Anderson, or the former Lieutenant Anderson, kill Bizarro supposedly. Supposedly Bizarro's dead. He escapes with the pendant and gives it to Ali Olston. Yep, I'm sure that's going to go well, and we see where that leads in this episode pretty quickly. But this episode as a whole, it had to deal with bringing back John and Natalie into it in a pretty interesting way that was still, it was bringing them in while there's already a storm going on. It was like a tornado coming into a storm and then mixing together and creating this, ultra storm, if you want to call it, because obviously we had this Jonathan drama and the Anderson drama and all that stuff going on from last episode, and they're brought back into it. But we do get to see some fleshed out stuff from, between the last time we saw Natalie to when she arrived and everything like that, and some of those hidden feelings within her that we were wondering why she wasn't bringing them out earlier in the season. Well, that happens in this episode. And of course, as I said before, we do get this fallout from, the end of last episode with Anderson and the pendant and just this Bizarro world situation, which opens up another whole can of worms just due to what happens in this episode, which we're going to talk about right now because let's break it down. So we start off this episode with a flashback to the events on John Henry's Earth before he came to Earth Prime from last season, but then we quickly jump into seeing Natalie's perspective after her father left their bunker to obviously go fight the evil Superman. And we see Natalie go after her father's ship in that fight with the evil Superman. But John goes through the portal like we saw last season and what appeared to be the antimatter wave that came through. But Natalie was caught in this weird thing where the portal sort of blocked the antimatter from getting her ship, which then leads Natalie to being nowhere. She's just in this vacant space like we sort of saw in Crisis when a world was destroyed last season. The world would be destroyed and there'd just be this vacant space. It'd just be empty, infinite space. And that's exactly where Natalie's ship pretty much just floated there in the darkness. Which then leads us to cutting back to present day, and John Henry is now awake and he's ready to actually leave the hospital and come back to the Kent farm. But he actually thinks the Lois that walks in when Lois and Clark arrive is his Lois. It's his wife. He thinks that for a moment. So there's already a bit of concern there, just due to this confusion, which makes you wonder where that goes in future episodes. Will he at one point think that Clark is the evil Superman or something like that as well? Very curious to see what happens there and if that's just a one-time thing. But picking up from the last time we saw Natalie, she of course still is not that pleased with Clark due to what happened to her father. Now, speaking of Clark and some drama, he does bring the boys together, revealing that the football season for Smallville High has just been cancelled. It's gone just because of the whole ex-Kryptonite situation, and they're them putting things under wraps, and they can't really tell who took it and who didn't, everything like that. With Jonathan still not giving up anything, and him still taking the fall for this XK drama. And of course, this is still not really sitting that well with Jordan, that his brother is taking the fall, but really not understanding why. Now, one thing that caught me off guard, I was like, hold on, what's going on here, was when we saw Ali and Anderson talking. However, it's the Ali and Anderson in the Bizarro world. And Anderson in the Bizarro world had an inverse society sort of jumpsuit on or something like that. And this is weird because I thought Bizarro killed Ali in the Bizarro world, but I guess he just took the pendant and left. I don't know, was anyone a bit confused there? Because when when we saw that flashback montage sequence from 2 episodes ago, I think was it last episode Was it the episode before? I can't remember because of this break we were just on. But I thought he killed the Bizarro Ally, but I guess he just threatened her and took the pendant. But then Bizarro was going to kill the Ally on this Earth anyway. I'm not too sure. It just, I don't know, he felt like killing Ally, but not his Ally. I was a bit confused there. I just thought I'd bring that up. But speaking of Ally, our Ally on Earth Prime, Lois gets a call from Chrissy with her telling Lois that she has scored an exclusive interview with Ally. And of course, there is immediate concern from Lois, but she isn't going to be standing in the way this time. But just lets Chrissy know that if there is any sign of trouble to give her a ring and anything like that. However, that plan sort of gets thrown out the door immediately when people working for Ally take Chrissy's phone. And obviously this is for good reason to sort of, not get in the way of what they were doing. And I must say, when we actually, just to go back a bit, when we saw Ally and Anderson talking in the Bizarro world, and even in the earlier episode when Bizarro walked into Ally and took the pendant, I was wondering why Bizarro Ally's room that she was in looked so familiar. I was like, why does that look so familiar? And that's because it's the Bizarro version of Anderson's office with, the DOD, with Clark and Sam actually finding out the pendant is gone when they go into, that proper office, with Anderson actually being at the mines with Ally and Chrissy, all in these weird hazmat suits, with Lois and Sam actually receiving what appears to be a goodbye text message, or text messages to both of them from Lucy, but she isn't home where her phone is when, Superman goes to check. So Lois, Sam, and Clark put it all together. You got Anderson, you got Lucy, and Chrissy all missing. Chrissy is known to be meeting with Ally. Anderson's just missing in general. And of course, Lucy is connected to Ally, but she can't be found. So they're all connected to Ally at this point in time, and they pinpoint the mines as a potential area. So this is where we see the group Ally is leading come across this portal into another dimension, with one person starting to levitate into the portal, followed by others, and then Chrissy. However, they start to disintegrate because they can't handle the power or the friction going on within the portal, with Superman being able to save Chrissy, Ally, and one other person. But Anderson is able to take the pendant from Ally after taking some X kryptonite so he can get through the portal safely, and just bails. He goes, "Bye, Ally, got your pendant, see ya." So Anderson has all the powers in his hands now, but the big question is, what happens with him in the Bizarro world? Does he just use it himself, or does he go to the Ally over there, or does he give it to the Bizarro Anderson? I don't know, but the big question is that it's unknown whether Lucy was one of the people that was killed while being sucked into the portal. Now, this whole sequence had me on edge because I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought we are actually going to go through. It was a bit of a tease, and I was like, oh my god, we're only halfway through this season, and it feels like we're going a bit too quick here. But it was just a bit of a tease, and obviously it sets up whatever's going on with our Anderson and the Bizarro Anderson and the Bizarro Ally for a couple of episodes down the track. Now, because of Superman having to go and save the people of the mines, Clark actually fails to bring Natalie and John home from the hospital like he promised he would do, which has Natalie lash out and saying stuff like, that I thought she would say earlier, like the fact that Clark is the doppelganger of the man who killed her mother and everything like that. So there's a bit of tension straight from the get-go there, which I expected. But speaking of some weird tension going on, Sam goes to talk to Ally and is on edge due to the unknown fate of Lucy. And of course, Ally is just going to play into that in her usual way, putting it out there that Lucy was a part of the thing in the mines, or playing it out that way. And of course, we didn't see her come out. It was Ally, it was Chrissy, and one other random guy. But the big question here is well, can you trust Ally? Is she going to tell the truth here? But Lois does go to Lucy's apartment to try and see if Lucy left anything else behind, and just can't really believe that Lucy would leave like that, especially considering the history of their family with her mother and everything like that. And at that point in the episode, I was like, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure whether she actually died, whether it was a misdirect, or what exactly was going on. But I was curious to see how they would play it out leading into the end of this episode, and they actually do put it out there. I wasn't too sure if we were going to have to wait an episode or two for this to be answered, but they answer it in this episode. But some other stuff that was going on throughout the episode is we have Jordan intervening at school when the higher up on the XK distribution clashes with Candace at school, with Jonathan opening up and letting Jordan sort of know what was going on, and why he's doing what he's doing. But we then see later in the episode Jonathan meeting up with Candace and walking her home, with Candace declaring a love for Jonathan. I don't know how I feel about Candace. I know, a bit on the edge with that. But this is just before the drug dealer we saw earlier in the episode, shows up. He takes XK and starts beating the hell out of Jonathan. But lucky for Jonathan, at the same time, Jordan is in like the Smallville town center or downtown, whichever one, I don't know, the town center. And here's this altercation going on with Jordan stepping in and having his first proper battle, at least winning battle. However, for Jordan, he is not really winning at the moment, as Sarah, well, she meets up with Aubrey again. I was going to say, is it Audrey or is it Aubrey? It's Aubrey, but it's Aubrey. She meets up with her again, which Jordan still isn't overly comfortable with, but also his current state after that fight was also not the best one to be in, especially one to, the best state to be in when you're crashing their talk, even though technically he would have been allowed to be there. And it makes you wonder whether Jordan's going to decide what he focuses his time on and whether he thinks he's the right person to be with Sarah at that moment in time. I think that's a question that he's going to have to ask himself. Now, obviously, we had that Natalie drama, so Clark and John Henry do address what happened, and also just what's going on now around John's injury and the issue with Natalie and the awkwardness around it all. And Clark decides to actually offer up another place in town for Natalie and her father to live in, which would allow them to get to know each other, Clark and Natalie, and more importantly, trust each other, but without being forced to do it under the same roof, not being forced to do it at the dinner table, at the breakfast table, or whatever, or at night when watching TV or something. They're not forced to do it in that way. They can do it in a more organic way, if you want to call it, living under their own roofs, having their own private lives, everything like that. And John and Natalie do move into this new rental, though it's more of an old rental, and it's like a rundown garage or something like that. But we do actually get another flashback with Natalie with the AI, with that AI telling Natalie that she's located her father's suit, but that Natalie might not survive the trip. But of course, we know she did. We saw her arrive at the beginning, or at the end of last season, and saw it play out more at the beginning of this season. So we know she got there safely, but we know the struggle that happened in between. But the big, this is happening is when Lucy shows up and is not dead. It's not a zombie. It's not, her body on a stick or something. She's alive. But at that time, and I'm still not too sure, I think this isn't the case, but I was wondering at the time, I was like, is this actually our Lucy? For some reason, I was having this feeling that she could be the Bizarro version. I was like, did our version die, but the Bizarro version was able to come through the portal or something? And there's sort of this thing going on. I wasn't too sure. But then we had Lois feeling confident that Allie is done for, with Clark actually revealing that Allie didn't actually have the pendant that was taken from Anderson's office. She didn't have it on her, and that's because we know that Anderson took it for himself and went into the Bizarro world. But then we see Lucy and Sam back at her apartment, with Sam collapsing to the ground after his drink is spiked by his own daughter, and pretty much Lucy was the backup plan if anything went wrong by the sounds of it. So Lucy's got some government ID, which is going to be able to get in and get Allie out of her little prison, if you want to call it. So Allie's going to be back out there. But the thing is that what happens, both of the pendants are gone. So I know what Allie does from here on in, unless Anderson decides to bring her back into the fold or comes back to our Earth. I'm not too sure, but it'll be interesting. But overall, I thought this was a pretty damn solid episode. I actually didn't even mention the Lana and Kyle stuff. I just realized I didn't put any of that down in the notes. But it wasn't really overly interesting. It was just more a bit of fallout from what we'd seen previously. I just didn't note it down. So I don't know if that reflects it. I don't think it was bad. It just wasn't worth writing down, in my opinion. Naturally, I just didn't write anything down in my notes about it. So that stuff happened. But overall, this episode was pretty damn solid with all the storylines. Very curious to see what happens going forward, especially with all this Bizarro world stuff, because it seems like we're all jumping around and people are in different worlds and dimensions. So let's just see how it plays out. But we're only halfway through the season. There's still ages to go in this season. I can't wait to see where it actually does end up. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show your support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about everything we went over and all of that. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.